G'day, welcome to New Game Plus. I'm Cringe, and this is my last episode on the show. If you've been keeping up with us over the last few weeks, and I believe the coming few weeks as well, this is part of New Game Plus's So Long and Thanks for All the Fish arc, I guess, where so far I can't remember what order it's being aired in, but Jamie, Don, Cardi, Jason, Prospect and Liam are all doing their own sort of dedicated episodes. Really the people who are still working on the show or have been working on the show more recently. And I kind of fall into that as well with a lot of the lockdown stuff we were doing. I kind of took on some of the reins around podcasting and the Twitch show and the weird summer season that happened just before lockdown kind of hit as well in Melbourne. So, I mean, you've seen me in front of the camera quite a fair bit over the last 6 years that I've been with the show. The show's been running for 10 years. That's why we're wrapping it up, and we've all got other things keeping us busy. But I've only been here for the last 6 years. A lot of that's been on camera, but a lot of it's been behind the camera as well. In my capacity as a camera operator, an editor, a producer, not quite as much as, I guess, Prospect and Liam have done. But when I sort of heard that I was going to have an episode to speak to, my involvement with the show, wrapping up my feelings on the show, I thought, well, okay, I'm going to drag some of the people that I've spent the most time with. And everyone else, that has their own episode has got plenty of time to speak about their experience. But the people that I've worked with quite a fair bit, the Z Games gang up in Brisbane when I was working on that radio show that really led to the summer season, and then the Twitch show on New Game Plus, I'm going to have them to speak in just a little bit as well. Adrian is going to come on to speak about how I dragged him into New Game Plus and worked with him on producing Z Games. And then Meg too, who I met at BAM9, went to plenty of events with her and did plenty of segments out in the field. So that's all coming up this episode. Later on, I'm going to speak a little bit to my feelings on New Game Plus and New Game Plus ending. When the show started, or when I started on the show, I was doing stuff in my bedroom out at parks at Westfields in Brisbane, and now I live in Melbourne. So I've got, plenty of thoughts, feelings, and emotions on that. That's a little bit later on. But here's a quick wrap up of some of the gang that I worked on Z Games with and how they felt about us really finishing this chapter of Z Games and New Game Plus.
So you literally made my childhood.
Don't get me started.
Hey everyone, it's Kate from Z Games, and I'm here at the Game On Festival in the Powerhouse in Brisbane. It was exciting because it meant thinking on my feet in a way that I've never really done before. And so trying to get I want to say crowd engagement and presenting on stage and kind of finding new ways to interview people that wasn't repetitive and keeping it kind of refreshed, and also just being there to experience the actual event itself. Yeah, I think it was just it was exciting getting to think on my feet in that way.
Hey, it's Millie at Tokyo Game Show, and I love merch. So I'm here to talk to you about some merch, and I've already bought some because I'm a disaster human.
Doing the whole merch stall, just having a little segment about me yelling about plushies was phenomenal, and honestly it was amazing that I got to do that in Japan for TV.
I think that's what this game is setting out to do. I remember somebody saying that they went into a shop one time and into a pizza shop or something, and somebody recognized their voice and were like, "Do you present for Z Games?" And they were like, "Yes." And they listened to the show, and it was such a weird moment of people actually listen, people listen to us, we go and we scream, and it's not just into the void, people are actually out there listening to our show. Just crazy, because it was so unhinged, and it always felt like more of a just getting together with friends and chatting about stuff thing for us. So I guess just thank you to anybody who did listen, and who also felt like they were part of that, just friends chatting about video games, because that's all we ever wanted it to be. We wanted it to feel like more of a conversation and an inclusive thing, rather than people reviewing games and having it be super formal and structured and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, we did get really unhinged on multiple occasions, but as long as people had fun listening, That's really all that matters.
So long, and thanks for all the fish. But also, like, I appreciate that everyone listened. I appreciate people listening to me talk about how gay I was. I just appreciate every single one of them that listened and gave us the time of day to just be friends on air. I always looked forward to Wednesdays because we could all just talk. While we had to keep it professional, the fun aspect, but it was still amazing just being able to just talk with your friends openly about your favourite hobby. And knowing that there are people out there that really enjoyed listening to you. Even if it was just one person, it was still amazing.
We are just a group of friends who got together, spoke about video games. We were sharing that with people across the world via the internet and in Australia via the radio. And I think if that's anything to like what is possible now in 2022, and this was a few years ago even, like if you have a dream to do something, live stream, like do it. Your people are out there. Your people are looking for you too. And, you know, I think we are a band of people who did just that. We found our people and the rest is history, so to speak.
My name's Adrian Avratal. I was a lead producer on Z Games and a producer on New Game Plus TV. When I was like fresh out of high school, I told myself I'm going to be a games reviewer full time. That was really appealing to me for some reason. As a passion project, I wrote game reviews for a few years, telling myself it was a real job. And fair enough, it is. It can be. I quickly realized that I didn't necessarily like tearing into other people's, sweat and tears as a full-time job because making games is hard, man. But for Z Games, I found that it was a really good opportunity to celebrate the games more than criticize them, because the format didn't really allow for like the same as you go on IGN, you read a review, a really long like essay that's going to tear into a game. Z Games was more about like celebrating them. You chat about what you loved about the game. Sometimes we play some like sound clips from the game, like you plug in your aux cord on air, play some music from the games as we're talking about them. That was really fun. But yeah, I remember my first episode coming, I think it was Dragon Ball Z, Fighter Z or something like that. And I remember coming with like a script that I prepared, not fully, but like a general structure of how I was going to structure the review, which I think helped at the start, but then it became really apparent that just being able to have that conversational radio kind of like back and forth between like the 3 or 4 of us that were in the studio, that was really good. And that was what I really loved about the format. Like we were just chatting about games. And I think to anyone tuning in, that was a less pretentious and easy to get into format. It was accessible compared to like some of the previous stuff we'd done, which was good, but it was just kind of 2 dudes having a chat about interesting niche stuff, which isn't going to appeal to everyone. The experience of doing radio and TV for video games specifically, I think, was a really good platform to confidently share my passion for games and feel good about it. And it feels legitimized as well. And I'd hope that people watching and listening in feel legitimized as well for their passion. And, I hope as well that we were able to boost local creators of games and contribute something in that regard as well. So I think, I got a sense of confidence and validation, being able to kind of literally boost my passion over the airwaves. I just really liked my last episode on the show for Z Games. I prepared a voice actor piece, which was like a half an hour feature that was pre-recorded, where I got to interview some of my favorite voice actors from the gaming industry, like Nolan North from Uncharted, Troy Baker, Donna Burke from Metal Gear Solid, all sorts of different people that spoke about their pathways into voice acting, into the games industry, which is a huge passion for a lot of people that kind of grew up on games, and especially anime. It's kind of a stereotype at this point, but there are a lot of people now that just want to be voice actors. They don't care about acting in front of people. They want to be behind the microphone, behind the screen, and bringing those characters to life. So getting to interview people who, they're not necessarily A-listers or even B-listers, but in the games industry, they're pretty up there. Especially Troy Baker and Nolan North. They're definitely some people that I look up to in the acting space for video games, especially. Getting to interview them and have them give some advice on people that were looking to get into the craft, I thought was really, really cool, and bringing that to the show as a kind of send-off before I moved to Sydney was sweet. I'd already been to Japan once before, so I feel like my expectations there were tempered. Like there wasn't as much culture shock. But going to Tokyo Game Show as like press was unexpected because there are so many different things you have to do that over there that are different to here, where it's like, you know, we had to get business cards printed because that's such a big thing as a, you know, sign of like respect, business respect in Japan. I don't even know if we ended up needing them in the end, but we had so many business cards that said New Game Plus TV on them. And I think mine said host or producer or something. But it was amazing covering that because I didn't expect it to be so English friendly, first of all. It felt like any other kind of trade show. And there were so many people there from like Western countries as well, which I didn't expect. So that kind of felt familiar. But then there were other fun experiences like getting stuck in a toilet and being late to do a shoot for Kingdom Hearts 3 to talk about that because, I mean, that had not come out at the time. And that was a huge deal that you could play Kingdom Hearts 3, which people had been waiting like 10 million years for. But I had an experience. I had a run-in with a faulty bidet because Japanese toilets have bidets built into them. They are very high power and they are very high temperature. So there was an interesting incident there that made me late to that shoot. But hey, we went ahead. It was all good. Thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened or watched or however you checked out New Game Plus or even Z Games over the years. It's really, really cool that you're able to support people that want to talk about games and celebrate creators of games and be a part of that community as well. It means a lot to all the people that make it. And I think a lot of us who do like this stuff, we just want to like celebrate and share our love for games as well. So.
Back in 2009, little old Megan was part of a Misfits podcast called Thumpad. And essentially it was a whole bunch of dudes reviewing video games and talking shit in their lounge room. And it was one of the best times of my life. It was so much fun. And these guys knew Jason. And back in the day, New Game Plus was called Level 3. And it was a really similar energy, filming game reviews in someone's basement. And it eventuated to be community television after a couple of years. And I reviewed a couple of ad hoc game reviews with them, and it was pure magic. It was when I met the whole crew. So Jamie, Cardi, Liam, Prospect, and it all grew from there. I took a break for a while and came back, and one fateful day I attended an esports event called Battle Arena Melbourne. I went to the esports event just to check it out and support my friends who were competing in the tournaments, and that day I met Jack, who's actually filming me right now behind this camera. And that day was fateful because we ended up filming a whole bunch of amazing content to amplify that event for New Game Plus. And ever since then, we haven't missed an event. We go to every pop culture and esports tournament ever and have covered some amazing stuff and interviewed some incredible people like PAX Australia. And yeah, it's been a great time and I've really loved every second of being on the show. Definitely taken a few breaks and come back, but learned so much and now I have like incredible public speaking skills and I can talk directly to a camera without freaking out. So it's awesome. It's been some good times. Some of the best moments working on the New Game Plus show with an incredible support network of people that are just as passionate as you are about video games and the culture and the industry at large, especially in Melbourne, Australia, was getting to interview some incredible talent. I worked with Jack to create this interview series, if you will, to not only talk to industry influencers and esports competitors, but other people that are making big waves and doing big things in the scene and supporting the local industry. And I learned a lot, but also had some amazing support from the New Game Plus team to refine my skills, get some critical feedback. Prospect knows how to show my good side and Jason knows how to help me direct behind the camera. So we're always there for each other and made some amazing friends from it. But I think, especially Jody, shout out to Jody, love you. But also, I think some of the events we were able to attend with that media badge to get behind the scenes and meet some incredible people was the best part of it all. I also got to interview one of the studio GMs from Crystal Dynamics for the Marvel Avengers video game at PAX Australia. This is a super big highlight for me because all of a sudden I'm interviewing someone from a AAA game studio, asking them questions that I'm super passionate about the game and the characters within the Marvel franchise. I learned a lot from Don actually with his quiz time events. He would do them ad hoc for our weekly shows and had some of the most incredible questions with the hardest answers. And if I wasn't paying attention to the news cycle that week in gaming, then I never won a single round. And he was so smart, and I think learning a lot from everybody that contributed their own passions to the show and what made the show really special. Another highlight of some things I'm really proud of that New Game Plus enabled me to showcase and work on were other local industry interviews and highlighting other people within the industry doing big things. I interviewed Girl Geek Academy, shout out to Sarah Moran, for highlighting all the incredible work they're doing, enabling 1 million women to learn how to code by 2025. They're doing some big things in Australia and they have global reach now with their incredible international programs, and it was a privilege to be able to talk to them on New Game Plus and tell the world about what they're doing. I was also really fortunate to interview streamers, cosplayers, and especially shout out to Meta High School Esports, who are doing huge things in the high school space to teach teenagers how to play Dota and League of Legends professionally and get that esports career going. That's where the money's at, you guys. You got to get onto that for sure. I was also really lucky enough to chat to the ESL team and Alex Blakey around what they're doing in Australia to amplify esports on a global scale as well and get the APAC region as part of that big mission. I learned a lot about influencers and streamers, especially the ones that are working really hard and hustling in Australia and making YouTube videos and being that Twitch streamer all the time, and the stuff that they have to go through to get their own share of voice and break through in such a competitive space. It was really exciting, and I think New Game Plus platform should be really proud of everything that they've achieved. And after 10 years of being online, on community television, on Spotify, and all these other touch points, they're doing huge things. And I think they've paved the way for other journalists in Melbourne and Australia and set a tone and a standard of what being a good games journalist looks like. New Game Plus has done huge things for everybody on the show. I think I speak for myself personally when I say the skills that I can take away from working on New Game Plus is priceless, immeasurable, infinite. It is the best. And I've taken those skills and run with them, but also fit the show around my life. It was like such a routine to go and film and review and see the team, and everything else just fit around that. But I think seeing everyone prosper and grow and do huge things with their lives, it says volumes about the value that the show can bring. And I think there was a really important place for New Game Plus on community TV. It was our biggest platform, our biggest competitive edge. No one else had the connections to be on that platform. I think over time, with the industry evolving, the digital platforms are really the most prevalent place that we needed to be in order to stay relevant and keep those views coming in. We pretty much filmed everything for community TV and cut it to fit a YouTube platform. But then whenever we could, especially with lockdown and COVID and everything, we pivoted really quickly. Jack pivoted really quickly to be able to allow us to film our content on Twitch. Whatever we could rip and put onto Spotify and just be everywhere all the time was really important for our survival. But it's just a thing that now, because we are all doing huge things with our skills that we've learned, we have outgrown and evolved outside of the show. And I think our content will always live on there to commemorate our iconic history of 10 huge years and everything that we've achieved back in the day. But yeah, I think it's the end of a chapter for all of us, and I'm really happy to see New Game Plus land where it has.
And that's a wrap on some of the people I can really hold to account for, this journey that I've had with New Game Plus. I mean, I started doing segments with New Game Plus after finishing a TAFE course in film and TV in Brisbane. After some study doing, I think it was game dev and then journalism that didn't really pan out, I kind of wanted to see where this sort of very low level or early interest in YouTube and Twitch could take me, and it ended up landing me at New Game Plus. Bringing segments from, bringing interviews together from GX, from PAX, from AvCon, because I always really loved the energy, as so many people do, of course, of conventions and gaming events, and bring that together into a segment with this sort of like overarching story I thought was really, really interesting. Not long after, I was kind of dragged into working on Z Games in Brisbane on 4ZZZ with the gang that you probably called earlier. I was writing occasionally and making videos for a website called Sticky Trigger, and that got me to more events like EB Expo. I think it was 2016 or 17. You know, down the track, I kind of started getting more into freelance work, and a lot of that I was able to, you could trace it back to my work with New Game Plus, giving me the skills and giving me more confidence to really put myself out there. I remember when I first started, I was like, what do you mean I'm invoicing? I'm sending you an invoice for money for you to pay me because I'm running around with a camera? It was bizarre at the time. It feels completely normal now because I do it all the time. But back then, you know, without New Game Plus giving me the confidence in front of the camera, using a camera, so behind the scenes and the editing and all of that kind of stuff, you know, that sort of started around 2017-ish at the same time. So events like Tech Games Fest, Battle Arena Melbourne. I was working for a number of studios, including Summerfall, on you know, little freelance jobs here and there. And then plenty of clients at PAX as well. I mean, I remember Next Exhibit being one of them. That was a really interesting time, and it sort of kicked that idea around even more aggressively of like, why am I living in Brisbane when all of the gigs that I'm doing are down in Melbourne? And that really got the cogs turning of, okay, well, how much longer am I going to be spending in Brisbane before I decide to pursue this a bit more aggressively? About the same time, I became the exec producer of Z Games in Brisbane. We were broadcasting nationally. That was a paid gig for a little bit, which was, you know, very much appreciated. And then we were filming in RMI TV New Game Plus when I would come down to Melbourne. And around the same time, a lot of the day jobs that I was working at that time kind of wrapped up. Early morning cafe work was kind of knocking me around. At the same time as bar work, I was working at a gaming bar on Surfers Paradise, which is kind of bizarre. Some of the customer service work I'd kind of left because it wasn't really working for me, basically. And so, you know, that was around the time that I moved to Melbourne. I think the flight path was something along the lines of Brisbane, Melbourne, Brisbane, Tokyo, Seoul, Tokyo, Brisbane, Melbourne, and then I just didn't go home. And, you know, that sort of led me to do stuff like the summer season, which, you know, I look back as, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I look back on my time at New Game Plus is, okay, let's try and bring it into more of like a panel discussion, like the entire show into a panel discussion, which was not, you know, revolutionary, but trying to pump out the content. I think we did 12 weeks of content in something like 5 weeks. That was mental at the time, certainly at RMI TV. Tokyo Game Show, obviously, Tokyo, Seoul, Tokyo, that's what that was for. So working with the Z Games gang in 2018 and 19 was really, really exciting. The Twitch show, you know, that was a natural progression, I felt, of some of the radio work and the panel work on the summer season, certainly. And then, of course, the field segments and Snack Attack were sort of rounding out some of my favorite moments with New Game Plus. Where it's gotten me, you know, when I moved to Melbourne, I moved stations from 4ZZZ to Joy. I was working on Checkpoint, the video game show there. And as I've gone through uni, studying journalism and becoming more adept in using those skills and more comfortable using those skills, I've moved into news bulletins, so news reading in the mornings for the breakfast show, and then, you know, health and well-being for LGBTIQ communities. Indeed, I work in queer media communications now, and really, you know, a lot of how I managed to get here comes down to my time on New Game Plus and working with such an amazing community, both from New Game Plus, but from Melbourne and Brisbane gaming communities generally. So thank you so much for watching. It's been an awesome ride. It's probably not the last you're going to see of me. We may well do some other stuff on C31 and YouTube, or I will. I know the rest of the gang have a few things planned down the track, but that's all from me on New Game Plus. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.